Good morning, and welcome to the fourth in a series of webinars, A Dad's Eye View. We hope to give you some perspective into the lives of Wish kids, their journeys, and the impact that Make-A-Wish has on their lives. I'm Richard Kelly. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Make-A-Wish Southern Florida, and I'll be moderating this discussion today. Unfortunately, right now, many of our wishes are currently on hold due to COVID-19, but hope for the future is still essential, and we will, with your help, be ready to grant the remainder of those wishes when it's safe to do so. So let's get to our guests. When 9-year-old Ethan had an opportunity to choose a wish, he did what he typically does. He thought of others. The selfless, now teenager, wanted a wish that others could enjoy. He and his family spent a week at Atlantis in the Bahamas, enjoying all the beautiful resort and water activities with his family, which was the highlight of the trip. Ethan's dad, Kevin, is here to tell us about that vacation and about his son's military career. Way back in 1994, 6-year-old Michael wanted a sanctuary where he could just hang out with the guys. What better place than in his backyard, right in the middle of a custom-built treehouse that was wrapped around a huge black olive tree in his backyard. You'll learn from Michael's dad, Raul, about the building of that treehouse, the selection of its color, the tremendous anticipation while it's being built, and who were the only two people who got the coveted keys to it. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Before we get started, I'd like to remind you that if you have any questions for any of us, type them in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. We'll answer them throughout today's session. So Kevin, let me start with you. So tell us a little bit about Ethan. You know, what kind of kid, now young man, is he, and you know, what was he like leading up to the selection of his wish?
So, boy, that's a big question. So Ethan is barely a kid anymore. So I was telling you earlier, he's officially has a larger shoe size than I do now. So he's closer to a man, I think, more recently than he necessarily is a kid. But I think, you know, his journey from the wish process is for sure. I mean, and, you know, just the whole process of going through treatment and all that. I mean, it's been so transformative for him as far as building on kind of a lot of the building blocks that were already part of his DNA, but really solidifying who he is as a person. I mean, you kind of mentioned sort of that giving nature that he has. Ethan's sort of the eternal nurturer. He wants to take care of everyone around him. He's more concerned with, you know, everyone else than he necessarily is himself. You know, first thing he does at Christmas time when he gets grandma's check is, you know, in his card is he wants to run out and buy everyone Christmas presents with his Christmas gift. So, you know, that's just kind of who he is. And I think not only from, you know, the process of going through it and the strengthening as a young man and everything, but also understanding, you know, for him, a lot of the takeaway was how fortunate he was to come out on the other end of it successfully. And he has this really ingrained value in him about, you know, paying it forward and trying to be there for other kids and other families going through it.
Do you think dealing with his illness had some sort of a learning effect on how he dealt with all that?
Definitely. I mean, you know, there's of course the obvious qualities, the strength and the, you know, fortitude and all that. Once he, you know, got through his first few treatments and kind of experienced the worst of it, the, you know, the sickness and the pain and the losing the hair and all that part of it. Once that sort of subsided a little bit, this other part of him took over, which I think was really the miraculous part, because he had some pretty amazing, you know, stories and instances of, you know, just really profound acts of kindness and things like that from total strangers. And he was starting to see this, you know, kind of develop around him. And one of his first reactions as he came out of that, you know, fear stage and everything else was he immediately wanted to start helping other kids. I mean, we had these t-shirts made as part of this little club we developed, this little fraternity. And his first question to me, you know, because it was supposed to be for us and the other people that were, you know, kind of part of this, he wanted to get more shirts made, because every time he went for his last 3 treatments, he wanted to bring shirts to the hospital and hand them out to other kids and, you know, kind of do that. So.
We'll get to his military career in a few minutes, but so tell me about the selection of his wish. You know, are you guys outdoorsy types? You know, I know you chose Atlantis, a vacation in Atlantis, and there's a lot of stuff to do in the water, a lot of stuff to do outdoors there. Why that wish?
Yeah, I mean, we were always tied to the beach. We lived a lot of different places: South Florida, South Carolina, Hawaii. At the time, we were living in Chicago, so the beach was still deeply ingrained into his memory banks as far as a place where it represented happy times and family time and spending time together and doing things. So I think symbolically, being on a beach somewhere in a tropical paradise represented something really profound to him, as far as something to aspire to, especially living in cold, snowy Chicago at the time. So I think that was where a lot of that was rooted. I think also he has a very strong-willed sister that I think had a little bit of influence over him into that as well. But I think also kind of speaks to a little bit of, he was so focused on what everyone else wanted to do. We had to keep refocusing his energies on, no, Ethan, what's going to be special to you? And ultimately, at the end of the day, what we figured out what was going to be special to him was everybody being together and having this amazing time and spending family time, because that was the thing he wanted the most.
We do talk a lot about the family aspect of what we do and wishes that we grant, and how that's become such an important part of the wish experience. Raul, speaking of family, so your son Michael's wish was granted a long time ago, a different generation, a different day and age, in 1994. Can you just tell us a little bit about who Michael is and what he's all about?
My wife and I were actually talking about that last night, that it had been 28 years since Michael's wish was granted. He was 6 years old. Michael, as a child, was yappy. Michael was a talker. He just talked and talked and talked and talked and talked and asked questions. He asked questions about everything. As a matter of fact, I used to grab Michael and I used to say, Michael, in life, you only get so many words, and you're using them all up now, you're going to run out. So, and what's funny is that kind of, as Michael grew older, he became less talkative and more of an introvert. And it's funny, his wish was that treehouse, and now he's 32 years old and he's married, and he has a home that he and I remodeled together to his specifications again. And he lives in that home with his wife of 2 years, Chelsea, and he's in the home most of the time. Obviously with the COVID now, even more so, he's working from home, and his wife is as well. But as Michael got older, he became more quiet. The one thing about Michael that, always amazed me growing up is, even through all the treatments and everything that he had to go through, because, he was diagnosed when he was 6 months old. So from the age of 6 months, which he was about 6 pounds back to his birth weight at the age of 6 months. And it was chest physical therapy and pills and almost force feeding to get him to keep his weight up and all that. And through all that, he was never a complainer. It was just part of his life. And to today, he's still like that. I tell him, you know what? You're the toughest kid I've ever met, the toughest person I've ever met in my life. Because, we as humans, we go through our day and we come home and we complain about what we went through at work and how tired we are. And, as you get older, where all you have to do is wake up and something new hurts. This kid never complains. He never did, and he still doesn't. But he's very appreciative. He's very loving. He's very family oriented. And, from the time he was probably 2 years old, basically when he could really get up and walk around on his own, he was into tech. He could work a VCR like nobody's business. He had his own rack, and every morning before we got up, he would get up and he would go pick what he was going to watch. And it personified itself in his wish later on, which was, the Barney purple color of his treehouse. So, Michael's very much grown up a man. His health didn't really start to decline until he was in his late teens, but it was from that point on, it was very, very difficult for him. And, that story has a very, very happy ending. But, Michael's just a guy who takes it on the chin and keeps on going and doesn't question anything. He's not a troublemaker. He's just a happy-go-lucky kid.
Who's a man now. He's 32.
But I think he ran out of words.
Yeah. So let me ask you. So leading up to his wish, he's around 6 years old, and he wants a treehouse in his backyard. And then you told me the story about how it took a while for it to be built, but he was undergoing therapy at that time, home therapy, so he could watch it being built. Can you tell us a little bit about that period right before the wish was granted, but while it was still in process?
Yeah, that was actually something that was very unique and a really great part of this wish was, you notice when you see the wishes, a lot of them are things that last, a day, kinds of things. Well, Michael wished for a treehouse, a purple treehouse, Barney purple, and he was very specific about the way he wanted things. So at that time, the Latin Builders Association were the ones that volunteered to make the wish come true. And they were working with Marty Huizenga. And they started like any other house. This was a tree house, but it was a house. And they came with plans from an architect. And it showed, how it was going to be attached to the tree, how many windows, the shape of it, and all that. So when before they actually started building the tree, they brought the plans over to the house and sat with Michael. And at first it was going to be square, and he said, no, I want it to be round. So they made it round. Actually, it was a hexagon all the way around. And he wanted a window in each panel of the hexagon. And he wanted a green rug inside. He wanted each window to be painted a different color. He wanted the door to be red. He wanted the stairs to be yellow. Everything was specified by him. So once they finally agreed on the plans, and I was able to get my wife to stop trying to get him to change the purple color, they started the building process. Well, at that time, Michael was getting chest physical therapy 5 days a week. So we had a counter in our kitchen, and Michael, we'd lay a cushion on the counter, and the physical therapist would come over. And basically, if you don't know what the chest physical therapy is, they lay him down and they clap all over different parts of his chest to try to release the mucus that's in his lungs. It's about a 45-minute procedure. And as I said, it was 5 days a week. But right where we had the counter, there was a door. And on that door, it had the top of the door was a window. So where before, when the therapist would show up, he would go, oh, and, it was kind of a chore to get up there and do his physical therapy. Now the guys were there building the treehouse. So he laid on that counter, and while they gave him his physical therapy, he would get the therapist to turn him just at the right angle so that he could watch them building his treehouse. And it took 6 months to do this. And it's funny because he would be in the middle of his therapy, and if he saw something he wasn't sure about or didn't quite like, he'd ask the therapist to stop. He'd jump down and he'd go out to the foreman on the job and he'd tell him, hey, why are you doing this? This doesn't look right. So, and then he'd come back in and finish his physical therapy. So he was kind of like the assistant foreman, and yet watching his wish be built kind of took his mind off the, the routine and the everyday stuff that he was going through getting the physical therapy. So it was really, really special to watch that whole process. And on any given day, you could go there and you could see him doing his therapy. And he used to fall asleep a lot during the therapy. Just lay there with a smile, watching to make sure that everything that was getting done right.
So he got an added benefit to the anticipation of that wish and not just the unveiling of it and getting to enjoy it. You still have Raul?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. Um, it was an all in all an 8-month process, and he was a part of all of it, and that made it special for him.
And the rules of the
He was able to
treehouse.
take and design and make this thing his own, and I thought that made it very special for him.
The rules were no girls allowed, and then who got the keys?
Okay, yeah, it's funny you had that picture up there, and there were I thought I saw a little girl in the sandbox below it, and that was the only time there were girls in that treehouse. His rule was there was no women allowed in the treehouse, and he had a keychain, a Mickey Mouse keychain that they gave him with 2 keys on it, and 1 key was for him. And I said, Michael, why are you giving your mom a key so that she can use the treehouse? She says, no women allowed, but I need her to have a key in case I lose mine. So she was his backup to open it if the key got lost. And there you can see the sign, which was at his request, Michael's wish. And he still has that sign to today, and it's up in his bedroom on the back of his door in his bedroom. So every time he goes to sleep at night, it says Michael's wish on the back of the door.
What do you remember about that day?
I remember Marty Huizenga being there. I remember all the Make-A-Wish people being there. Look at his face. That's what I remember. I remember him walking around, and I remember him kind of walking all his friends through. One by one, he would take them up there and show them. And, you know, you see all the kids out there at the window. That's the picture I remember the most. That's the picture that they put in the paper. And he stood there at the window and he waved at everybody who was there. Like, this is mine. This is my treehouse. Look at this. And you see the happiness on his face. And that's what I take back. The memory that I take back most from that day was how happy that made him.
That must have been really meaningful for you and for Maria to be there, to see your son, to know what he had been through, and what he was getting that day, and what he would be able to enjoy. So Kevin, I'll ask you. We have a question from the audience. How did your wish experience strengthen your bond between you and Ethan?
I mean, pretty profoundly. So, you know, kind of, we started the process when initially, you know, he had some surgery and some different things. He was young at the time, 7 years old, and we didn't really want to let on yet that, you know, what we were going through was cancer and things like that, until we really got to some of the stages where we knew we were going to have to start having chemo and things like that. So, you know, even then, a 7-year-old doesn't really fully comprehend what that means, what the implications are, or anything like that. What he did understand was, once he started going through the process, and, you know, he understood what it felt like to be sick after chemotherapy. And, you know, there was a lot of, you know, they kind of, the doctors talk you through, well, you should expect this and you should expect that. He was really hung up on losing his hair. He was afraid he was going to go to school and the kids were going to make fun of him. Right. So he was really concerned about that. So, you know, throughout the process, I promised them that we go get our heads shaved, you know, all these things like that. And so there was a lot of father-son strengthening moments, you know, kind of in those times. I think for me, and my bond with him, it started really changing because I saw this young man come out in him, even at 7 years old, that I was completely blown away by. I mean, I was just, you know, I said during the whole process then, and I still say today, I mean, Ethan is infinitely better than a man than I will ever aspire to be. And it comes out in him so organically and naturally. So, you know, as a father, my pride in him and watching him navigate that, and, you know, obviously the strength of the bond of, you know, father supporting his son, you know, the family and everything else. I mean, it was a profound experience for our relationship as a father and son in many, many ways.
I mentioned at the top about military, and this seems like an appropriate time to ask you about the Coconut Head Army. Ethan's the general. So can you tell us about that, that sort of community bonding experience?
Sure. So, you know, one of my takeaways from the whole experience was the importance and the effect on families and a child going through, you know, any type of cancer. We were really blessed in that Ethan had a really benign version of, you know, he had Hodgkin's lymphoma. So we knew it wasn't life-threatening for him, but it's still traumatic nonetheless, right? And you expect you're going to receive support and, you know, sympathy, whatever it is, from friends and family and all those things. But some of the most profound experiences we had were from people that weren't in that direct circle, or weren't in that, you know, that network of people that, you know, you rely on your mother or father or whoever it is, right? And so one of the experiences we had, so I mentioned that Ethan was really concerned about losing his hair. So him and his sister were wrestling around one night, and his sister, you know, grabbed him by the hair, and out came a big clump of hair in her hand. And he was, you know, really traumatized about it and freaked out. So, you know, his mother gave me a call at work and said, you know, it started happening, you know, you should come home. So, you know, I promised him we'd go get our heads shaved. So came home, picked him up. We went to the barber shop. You know, it was kind of this act of solidarity, you know, that we were going to go do this together. And we both, you know, got our heads shaved, and it made him happy. It was, you know, kind of strengthening for him. So, you know, what was going on behind the scenes is Karen, his mother, was kind of sending messages out to, you know, mothers and things like that of the rest of his friends, you know, basically saying Ethan's really concerned of what the kids' reactions are going to be tomorrow. So when we took him to school the next day, all these little boys had shaved their heads. And the teachers and the school guard and all these people. And it was really profound, right? It was all these people were doing this, you know, kind of simple act to support this little boy and make him feel comfortable, right? And not make him feel like he was an outsider, and not make him feel like, you know, he was different than the rest of the kids, and even more so, making him feel like he was special. And you know, I said to him kind of jokingly that morning, I said, man, you guys all look like you have you know, coconut heads. I said, you're like the general of the Coconut Head Army. And it just kind of stuck, right? And it became sort of this like fraternity of young men. Those are the t-shirts that we had made. You know, I had, you know, a graphic artist kind of design this logo for us, and we made all these t-shirts. And, you know, it was initially kind of, we wanted to say thank you to all these people. It was the initial thought. And, you know, I kind of drafted this letter to the fathers as, you know, to sort of say thank you for the way they were raising their sons, and how important it was to, you know, be that strong presence in their life. And that, you know, even though their influence was coming out, you know, in the way they raised their child, in this sort of organic way that these young men had kind of surrounded their friend and did this really selfless and actless thing. One of Ethan's best friends was actually this little girl at the time, and her parents had called us and begged us to talk to her because she was insisting that she shave her head in solidarity with the rest of the boys. And, you know, we had to kind of talk her down and say, no, sweetheart, you know, thank you so much, and it means so much, but please don't shave your beautiful, you know, golden locks, and it's not necessary, you know, all that. So that's kind of how it came to be. And then it sort of like grew from there. And then, as, you know, different people did different things, different strangers, random strangers, Ethan was like, well, can we give him a t-shirt? And, you know, we gave them out to all the boys and their fathers. And then he wanted to have more t-shirts made. And, and take them to the hospital when he had treatment and do all these things. I remember one of his last treatments, you know, we had a bag of t-shirts we brought with us, and there was this little boy, and he obviously had some kind of like very traumatic brain cancer or something. And he was in the waiting room with us, and he was having an absolute fit. And he was young, he was 4 or 5 years old, little kid. But, you know, kind of, he was not happy about being there, and, you know, kind of hitting his mother and screaming and yelling and everything else. And Ethan just kind of grabbed a shirt and walked right over to the little boy and gave it to the little boy. And it was this really emotional moment for the mother. You know, I'm not sure the little 4-year-old boy necessarily got it, but for the mother, like, it was profound. And it was, you know, that kind of legacy of good deeds and humanity and everything just, you know, it became so ingrained in his DNA as a young man at that time. It's still like so present today.
And the experience has been clearly profound for you too. So transition to Ethan is doing great. He has significantly sized man feet now. But you sort of have transitioned now, and in your job, you are on the granting of wishes side of it. You've seen quite a few kids come through your resort. Can you talk about being on that end of it? You know, you're a wish dad, but now you get to be on the other side of it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was similar thing. I mean, I have to practice it a little bit more than it comes naturally to Ethan, but I'm blessed to work for an amazing company at the Boca Resort where they support, you know, the fact that it's important. And we have, it's not me, like I wind up being a good delegator of responsibilities, but we have an incredible team that just really identifies with the fact that we're blessed with the opportunity to do this. And that's really what, you know, you have to have people that are passionate about it and believe in it wholeheartedly. And all you have to do is experience one family's wish to understand the gravity of it. And we're blessed in that we get, you know, we're a big magical place that gets to do some really cool things that other people don't necessarily need to do. So when we do them, we try to, you know, kind of trump our last one and go as over the top as we possibly can. And anytime we've ever asked other people in the community, other companies to partner with us and donate their resources or, you know, get involved, whatever it is, I mean, it is always a resounding yes. So, you know, we're pretty blessed. I get to keep in touch with a lot of the families that come through, which is amazing. And for me, you know, I look at it also as, you know, kind of my part of it. You know, of course it's about the kid, but I remember going through it just from the father's perspective, and the fathers carry this really strange role in that, you know, kind of there's this symbolic strength that the father is supposed to have, you know, being the pillar of strength in the family and everything else. And fathers go through weakness and fear and anxiety and all those things as well. So, you know, it's I try to get to know the families a little bit. If I can grab the dad and pull him to the side and talk to him a little bit, I do. And it's, you know, it's just kind of, it's that example that I think probably Ethan made for me of giving back and maybe paying forward a little bit what was given to us. And I'm blessed to work for a company that lets me do it and lets us do it in a big way. And we've got a great relationship with Make-A-Wish.
Well, we do appreciate you, and we appreciate your resort, and we appreciate everybody that plays a part in the Wish experience, no matter what side of the community they're on, whether they volunteer for it, whether they make a financial contribution, or whether they host a Wish family. Everybody plays their part into making these magical experiences. So Raul, tell us how Michael is doing now. We've established he's a grown man. He's married. You know, his cystic fibrosis is being dealt with, and I know he had a milestone in that journey not too long ago. Can you just tell us how Michael's doing now?
Yes, Michael, as I said before, his health had started to decline in his late teens, and it continued progressively until at the age of 31, Michael was on oxygen 24 hours a day. He was limited in how much he could walk, how far he could walk. And 2 years ago in August, we got our second wish. and Michael received two brand new lungs. He had a lung transplant at Tampa General Hospital, and it was a tough year, the first year, but he just had his 2-year checkup after receiving the transplant, and he's doing fantastic. There are no signs of rejection, and the future looks very, very bright for him. And, he was able to get a second wish in his life. And, I want the people who grant these wishes, people like Kevin and the Boca Resort, the people who make donations, to understand that in no matter what way or shape or form you contribute to an organization like this, the Make-A-Wish Foundation, that creates a bright spot, whether it's one day or 6 or 8 months like it was, and the lasting effects that my son's wish had, because he was able to continue to enjoy that treehouse for a long time. You take these kids that have these, they go to chemotherapy, they lose their hair, they have the therapy, the 50, 60 pills a day, and never knowing what the ending is going to be like. But you make them forget about these things. They completely and totally forget about it. And they go, and this is their wish. This is something that they picked that was personal to them for whatever reason it was, but it was their wish. And you are able to grant that to them. And just think about what an incredible thing that is, that somebody says, I would like to have this, and you get it for them. And, to those people who donate their time, their money, unselfishly, and donate of themselves and give of themselves to make these kids happy, it's just an incredible thing. And I was touched by that magic, and so glad and so proud to be a recipient of that, to have my son be a recipient of that, my wife, my entire family. And you make that all happen. So, thank you from the bottom of our hearts, from our family, from my son, Michael, for everything you do to make this incredible thing happen for these kids.
Thank you. Kevin, I'll ask a question along the same vein. So there are quite a few people that are on here that support Make-A-Wish, maybe thinking about supporting Make-A-Wish, potential donor, current volunteer, staff member. What would you say to those people about the lifelong impact that Ethan's wish has had, or you expect to have for years to come?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard for people to understand the impact that the wish process has, not only for the child, but for the family. I mean, it's not only sort of this like beacon of hope during the process, kind of like Michael had, where it was watching his treehouse being built every single day, and he could take his mind off of what he was going through in that moment and watch something developing, before his eyes that he knew was something to look forward to at the end. And that, I think, is kind of the foundation of what the wish represents. It's the value that hope and something positive and something to aspire to. If I can just get through this thing and I can get to the next stage, and then that leads me a little bit closer to the end, the value that brings in the healing process, in that child and the family's ability to navigate the hardest and the worst of the times. And then it's this, there's obviously a lot of celebration and fanfare if you reach the end of it, if you hit that milestone of your last chemotherapy or whatever, and it's behind her and the test results come back. But when all that's done and you get to actually then go celebrate it in a really big way, and the celebration is something that that the child chose, it's such a emotional and mental and sort of physiological impact on healing for the family and the child, and to put hopefully that portion of their life behind them, or, you know, we see a lot of families that are still neck deep in it, right? And it's not behind them, and they're still in the middle of it. And I've had families, you know, one of the mothers I keep in touch with, and she said to me 100 times, she was like, Kevin, literally the time we spent there at the resort and, you know, the things we did was the only time I've seen my children smile and have a good time together in the 3 years that we've been going through this. And it's just that small window of forgetting that cancer exists for a little bit, and spending time as a family, or having that kid get to fulfill their, you know, greatest wish or whatever. It's just so impactful. And I would say anybody that's able to be on the actually fulfilling of wishes part of it, you know, I say all the time to the families that I communicate with, you have no idea the impact that you have on us, right? And your ability to kind of bring our team together, and what it means to work hard towards something that's really meaningful. I mean, we work pretty hard here at what we do, but when you invest that energy into something like this, and you see the end results, that's just absolutely life-changing for a child and their family and everything else. I mean, it really kind of makes you pause and rethink a little bit of, you know, what's important in life, and how your time is spent. And I mean, this is a priceless investment of either resources or time or money or whatever it is. And if you have the opportunity and, you know, kind of hear a testimonial or hear a family or a child, like I've never ever heard anybody say, it's all right. Right. It's always this like life-changing experience for people, and really, really gratifying and, you know, amazing experience for the people that get to be on the giving end of it.
What was your favorite part of Atlantis?
Oh boy. You know, the dolphin encounter. I mean, we've spent a lot of time at the beach. It was the first time I had actually got, you know, up close and personal with a dolphin and animals like that. So that was pretty cool. And I mean, if you've ever been to Atlantis, it's pretty over the top. I've worked for a lot of big resorts and hotels and things like that in my career, but it's pretty amazing spot.
Raul, what's the status of the treehouse?
Well, unfortunately, the foundation of the treehouse. Well, you know what? The foundation wasn't the tree. The foundation was the family and the family unity that the tree created. So I want to correct myself there. But what held the tree up was the black olive tree. And we outgrew the house. We moved to another home. The tree house still stood. Michael was, I think, 15 when we moved out of there. But the tree got infested with carpenter ants, and it started to rot and drop branches and actually became dangerous. So they had to cut the tree down, and the tree was what held the tree house up. So unfortunately, the tree no longer exists. It does in pictures and right here, but and we still have the sign that, you know, Michael has up in his room that says Michael's Wish. So it exists there, and on Michael's keychain that he has his car keys on, that he uses every day whenever he drives somewhere. That Mickey Mouse keychain with that key to the treehouse is still on there, and that's how the tree lives on.
That's great, inspirational. We have one comment, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up because we're against time. A comment from one of our attendees that said, Raul and Kevin, you're an inspiration for those of us who work for Make-A-Wish. The love you have for your kids is what motivates us to continue the work we do every day. Thank you for sharing your stories. And I just want to echo that, Kevin and Raul. Thank you for being so open with us, for sharing the stories of your son's wishes and the lifelong legacy that will be left, and the impact that a wish can have on a family, on an individual, on a community, and people that are surrounding that experience. Thank you to our panelists, and thank you to everyone who attended, asked such great questions, made such great comments. If you know of someone who is unable to attend today's session, you can shortly find it on our YouTube channel. You can just search Make-A-Wish SFLA on YouTube. Also be on the lookout for an invitation to our next webinar, Wishes Are Magical, where we'll talk about the Disney experience on October 21st via Zoom at 11:30 a.m. We thank you for your continued support and hope to count on you in the future when the world finally returns to some sense of normalcy and wishes can be granted again. Thank you and have a great day.